So, no, I wouldn't say I have a passion for HR.
Welcome back to Human Resources for the People. It's a human capital revolution. Here I am doing another human resources comparison video. This one is about 5 interesting things about human resources law in Belize. And what we're going to do is I'm going to compare a little bit between the United States and Belize. We'll compare them best we can, best we know. And it'll be an interesting sort of intro into the country of Belize as well. So the first thing up is just a background of Belize. It's a Caribbean Atlantic facing country in Central America. It's a former British colony, and it has about 500,000 people, a little bit under that. So it's fairly small. There is English is mostly spoken there at 63%, although they do have Spanish and Creole as well as Mayan, German, and others. There's a lot of expats from the United States as well as from other countries, and that's kind of the standard there. One interesting thing to note is that, as you can see here, it's the only flag with two people on it. Yes, it is the only flag with two people. Number one is currently addressed in the United States by our OSHA regulations, but I find it to be really interesting. It says any person carrying on or commencing operations involving the exposure of workers to ionizing radiations shall, within 1 month of the commencement of such operations, notify the labor commissioner of the nature of the operation he is carrying on or commencing. That seems a little bit crazy. How do you have just random people wandering around exposing folks to ionizing radiation? Why do you have to wait a month? I mean, obviously, radiation can be serious, and the situation could sort of escalate rapidly with respect to your health or decline rapidly with respect to your health. So I think this is curious why this, why 1 month when they're working on ionizing radiations. It's just really curious to me, but very interesting. The next one up on number two is something that I haven't seen before, but it's sort of to be expected. I don't think that it's necessarily in human resources in labor law in the United States. It says where an employer offers any work to a worker, he shall inform him either at the time of the offer or as soon thereafter on the same day as may be practicable how it will be paid, right? So it'll be piece rate, hour rate, task rate, etc. This is how you'll find out. You'll need to know within the same day. And I think what cracks me up, this isn't, as far as I understand, addressed by American labor law, right? There is offer letters are not really required, but I would want to know really quickly. That's just me. Maybe I'm alone in this world, but I would want to know real quickly how I'm being paid. The next one up is again about pay, and it says no worker shall be obliged to work on more than 6 days in any week, or for more than 9 hours of actual work in any day, or 45 hours of actual work in any week. Now, I wonder if like actual work is sort of a caveat where yeah, if you, I don't know, just sit around at a grocery store and you're not talking to any customers or anything, if that counts as actual work or not, maybe that's the workaround. The interesting thing is the United States does not have any federal laws with respect to how much you can work. Now, there are some state laws. For instance, in Wisconsin, there is a one day of rest in every 7 law. I believe Illinois and California also have that. There's a couple other states that do too. So there is some of that, although Wisconsin at least gets around it by saying you have to be at least, you have to have off at least 2 days in 2 weeks. So you could work, potentially 12 days in a row, and that'd be perfectly fine. In addition, it says the gross weekly wages should not be reduced as a result of the reduction in weekly hours, and overtime counts as anything more than 45 hours. So American federal law does have, a 40-hour work week, and we get paid as long as you're not exempt for more than 40 hours. Here, it's actually 45, which is a really interesting dichotomy, I think. In the four spot, it's one that's pretty common. Although I think that the nature, the actual days off is fairly useful, meaning it gives an insight into the culture itself. All work done on Christmas Day, Good Friday, and Easter Monday, which fall on a scheduled work day. That is to say, a day on which the worker would have worked, but for the public holiday, shall be paid for at double his ordinary rate of pay. So if you do work on Christmas, on Good Friday, on Easter Monday, which I think that is fairly unique, right? So the holidays that book end Easter, right? The Friday and then the day after, the Monday after, those are holidays. But New Year's Day, any sort of Independence Day, things like that are not covered under this law. And I think that that's an interesting insight into the culture. There are no federal American laws with respect to this. There is no requirement for any holidays federally in the United States. So that's an interesting sort of difference between the two cultures. So here's a little bit different of a take on workers' comp. And this is in the five spots, the last one. If you're interested in more about Belize labor law, you can check it out down below. I have the link for the labor law. It's a really interesting law. It's interesting to do comparative human resources and understand the two cultures. But let's move on. The last one says any employee who has been employed by the same employer for an aggregate period of not less than 60 days in the preceding 12 months. So you have to work 60 days in the preceding 12 months, and they get sick while working for the employer, and the illness was not caused by his own default or misconduct, the employer shall grant to the said worker, at his request, sick leave with pay up to 16 working days in any 12 months, which is really interesting. For one, I think this is a unique take on workers' comp, right? It says, and the illness was not caused by his own default or misconduct. And American workers' comp does not make that sort of distinction, right? We allow people who do some very stupid stuff to receive workers' comp and to receive sick leave, all because we didn't train them. Now, quite often, those people could be terminated for the stupid things that they did, but ultimately, we would pay for their time off or for their situation. And so this is a really interesting difference that Belize sort of makes very specific that it can't be that by their own default or misconduct. So I think that's an interesting difference here. What do you think about today's video? Please comment down below, like, share, and subscribe. It really helps out. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.